In the quiet lamplight of her cottage, Elara's hands danced across parchment, not charting lands, but emotions. She was a cartographer of the unseen, mapping the curve of a smile, the weight of a memory. Her world was one of ink and feeling, guided by a special brass compass she called the guiding star. But one evening, a frantic search revealed an empty space in her satchel. The compass was gone. A pang of loss, sharp and sudden, reminded her of another void, the one left by her friend Finn, who had vanished into the eastern mountains 2 winters ago, his face now just a dusty memory. There was no time to waste. Saddling her trusty pony, Pebble Elara turned her face to the east, propelled by a desperate hope. The journey began in a blaze of autumn color. Elara and Pebble moved through dense forests, the air crisp and filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. But Elara wasn't just riding, she was reading the land, interrogating it for clues. Her trained eyes spotted a small, scuffed boot print, nearly hidden by fallen leaves, a scrap of torn blue canvas snagged on a thorny bush, and a single, displaced stone on an otherwise undisturbed patch of moss. Each was a whisper from the past, a breadcrumb left on a forgotten trail. The clues led her upward into the foothills, where the landscape began to change. The vibrant forest gave way to the Weeping Gate, a treacherous pass of slick, moss-covered rocks perpetually shrouded in a cold, damp fog. The warmth of the lowlands was gone, replaced by a biting chill that seemed to seep into her bones. The world turned to shades of blue and grey. Here, tucked carefully beneath a rock, she found it, a small wooden bird, crudely carved, a token she recognized. Kale, a young apprentice from a nearby village, had spoken of venturing this way, driven by a desire to follow in Finn's footsteps, to find a purpose of his own. Realizing the boy was ahead of her, likely lost and unprepared, a new urgency seized Elara. She pulled out a fresh piece of parchment. With swift, practiced strokes, she drew a simple map, not of a destination, but of a question. It was a large, elegant question mark, its path marked with symbols of shelter and warmth. She hid it where Kale would surely find it, a message in the language they both understood, cartography. It was a silent plea, asking, "Where are you? And are you safe?" Before she pressed on, the ascent growing steeper. The air grew thin and the wind howled as Elara climbed higher toward the desolate, icy spires of the silent peaks. Mount Dira, the highest of them, loomed like an impossible, jagged tooth against the grey sky. And there, on a narrow, wind-swept shelf of rock, she saw him, a small, huddled figure barely visible against the stone. It was Kale. He was shivering, his face etched with a mixture of awe and despair. He looked so small, so utterly alone in the vast, unforgiving emptiness of the mountain. Elara approached cautiously, her heart aching for the boy who had dared to chase such a lonely dream. As she got closer, she saw what he was clutching in his small, numb hands. It was her compass, the guiding star. But something was wrong. The brass needle, instead of pointing north, was fixed, pointing rigidly toward the bleakest, most barren peak of Mount Dira. Kale looked up, his eyes hollow. "I thought it would show me the way," he whispered, his voice raspy. "But it only points to a place that holds nothing yet." He believed the compass was meant to lead him to a pre-existing destiny, a treasure waiting to be found. But Elara understood its true nature. The guiding star didn't point to what was, but to what could be. It pointed toward potential, toward the direction of one's deepest, most unformed ambition. Kale's ambition was so vast, so undefined, that the compass could only point to the vast emptiness of the peak, a blank canvas for his future. The boy was lost not because the compass was broken, but because his dream was too big to take the first step. Sitting beside him on the cold rock, shielding them from the relentless wind, Elara pulled out a large sheet of birch parchment. It was time for a new kind of map. "A destination is not a single point," she said gently, her quill scratching against the surface. "It is an inventory of steps." She began to draw. First, a section for sustenance, filled with symbols for a warm meal, a sturdy roof, a patch of land for a garden. This was the foundation. Next, she drew a section for capital, not of gold, but of skill and knowledge. She sketched a hammer and chisel, a stack of books, a loom. These were the tools to build a life. Finally, she drew the section for community. It was a web of interconnected lines, representing friends, mentors, family, and the village below. A network of support. She explained each part to Kale, showing him that a grand ambition isn't reached in one leap, but built piece by piece, starting with the very ground beneath your feet. When the map was complete, a detailed guide, not to a place, but to a process. She took the guiding star from his hand. She placed it gently in the center of the new parchment. For a moment, the needle spun wildly, a frantic, chaotic dance as it searched for a direction within this new framework. Then, slowly, it settled. Not on the grand peak, not on the abstract dream, but pointing resolutely at the small, humble icon for sustenance. A single, perfect loaf of bread, a look of profound recognition washed over Kale's face. The despair in his eyes was replaced by a flicker of understanding, then a glimmer of tangible hope. The impossible peak was still there, but it was no longer the only thing he could see. He now had a starting point, a first step. The descent was different. The biting cold seemed to recede as the warm, golden light of late afternoon broke through the clouds. They walked together, Kale clutching the new map, its ink barely dry. He followed the path Elara had navigated on her way up, but now it seemed less treacherous, more defined. The way down was the first part of the journey home. Pausing for a moment, Kale carefully folded the birch parchment, a precious guide, and tucked it safely into an inner pocket close to his heart. Looking down the mountain, the winding path no longer seemed like a retreat, but the beginning of a new, more grounded adventure. A path Elara knew is only invisible until you chart the small steps that make it real. The journey to the highest peaks always begins with the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to follow for more.